Hello everyone and welcome back to the FinTech Times. My name is Tyler and today we're here at the MoneyLIVE Summit in London. Right now I'm joined by Andrew. Andrew, how are you?
Nice to be here, Tyler. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, and thank you for taking the time to speak to the FinTech Times. Before we go into our conversation, would you just like to tell our viewers a bit about who you are and where you come from today?
So I'm the founder and CEO of London-based iProov. For 10 years, we've been assuring the genuine presence of remote users. We use face verification, and our speciality is to ensure that the remote person is the right person, a real person, and they're right there, right now. And today we're doing this worldwide, millions of cases across in every vertical, government and private. We have about 150 people, most of whom are just across the river from where we are now in Waterloo.
Brilliant. Well, it sounds like you have a very interesting business model, and especially in light of COVID restrictions and people being further away. When you're dealing with financial services and financial data, it's very sensitive data, and knowing that you've got the right person behind the screen almost is more important now than ever. So I can imagine that your work at iProov is become quite pivotal to the acceleration of fintech services in the pandemic. In your own words, how do you feel that the appetite for Know Your Customer has changed within the last 12 months?
So even before the pandemic, there was a secular change beginning to take place. There was a movement, a digital transformation, which was beginning to change the financial services industry away from paper, away from branches, towards a digital transformation. Already in 2018, we'd been working with forward-looking banks like ING and Rabobank in the Netherlands, DNB in Norway, and banks elsewhere, who were in some ways pioneers of remote identification. The pandemic changed all of that. What it did was it concertinaed several years of development actually into several months, because all of a sudden paper wasn't going to work fast enough, branches weren't an option, new threats were emerging, and suddenly many applications, both in the financial services area and also in government, understood that they needed to move fast to provide remote access. It reinforced what I semi-seriously call the centrality of the couch, that it moved people's couches or sofas in some part, or divans, depending on where you are, as being the place where key security processes in the financial journey would begin. And therefore, the necessity to ensure that the person that you thought you were engaging with was the right person, but also a real person and present there, right now. In many cases, government benefits started to be paid out remotely in this way, and so there was in California, for example, there was a $30 billion bug bounty on systems like ours. And so the intensity of attack, which we had theorized and prepared for many years, suddenly with the pandemic became a reality. So not only did we see a huge increase in demand, we also saw a huge increase in the pressure of attack. So in some ways, these 2 years of the pandemic have been dog years. We've seen these are 7 years of experience compressed into 2, and I think the whole industry has actually made a huge leap forward as a result.
Well, it's very good to see the sort of rise in fintechs that complement other areas of the industry, and especially paytech in this way. Yeah, I mean, you touched upon the growing pressure of the attack there, but I'm just curious to know if that is solely the only challenge that your business has faced in the last 12 months.
So the real challenge, so we have a business like ours, which is really about binding real physical human beings to their digital identity, however constituted. We always have 2 major challenges. One is to keep out the attackers, and to do so reliably and resiliently. Not perfectly, no cybersecurity system can ever be 100% perfectly, but to do it very, very well. But the second is to make sure that we deliver a high standard of service to good people, that the vast majority of good people can get through with the smallest number of attempts, to make sure that we're accessible and inclusive. And with millions and millions of people iProoving all over the world, our challenge has been to ensure a consistently high quality of service to all those people aged 9 to 90, whatever their gender or their ethnicity or their cognitive ability, everyone of whatever the device they're using, everybody our responsibility has been to make sure that as many people as possible could gain access easy and simply. So balancing those two has been a tremendous challenge. The great challenge also has been the incredible increase in volumes. I mean, one of our customers came and said, we have 6 weeks to increase the capacity of the system by 50 times. Can you do that? And the answer is yes, we delivered.
Yeah.
And we delivered that because since we were founded, we placed scalability as well as security at the heart of our platform design. So when it was a question of increasing to that level of capacity, in order to meet a huge public demand, we were able to do so.
It's really interesting that you talk about working in the face of public demand, and especially when that demand has become so niche in the environment of the pandemic. It sounds like you've had an extremely busy year from what I understand. But I was just wondering what else have you been up to this year?
So the centrality of the couch is beginning to assert itself in a wide range of areas. So we've been working in public sectors, both in the fintech, in the finance area, dispensing dealing with benefits. Our earliest project, which still continues, was in collaboration with our partners Entrust for the delivery of the EU Settled Status scheme, which has now become the general IDV scheme. But one of the great challenges was to make sure that we could scale up with the NHS, because we were doing automated onboarding for the NHS app, which of course was all about COVID certificates. We actually developed, together with a partner, Mvine, a complete COVID certificate solution, which was never rolled out because there was no public demand for a highly secure COVID solution. At the same time, we have seen the growth of eIDAS as a qualified, it's not a big thing in the United Kingdom, but across Europe. eIDAS qualified signatures are the equivalent of a wet signature on a document. And so we've been working over the last year, and last week it was announced that we had secured certification as the world's first biometric authentication method to achieve qualified trust service standard. So now, for the very first time, qualified trust service providers all over Europe can use iProov to onboard people instead of demanding that they turn up in person or do some long and horrible video conferencing call. But the centrality of the couch extends beyond that. So we did a major project with Eurostar, for example, in which we moved the moment of ticket and identity check from the gate, which is a place where time and space are very precious, onto the couch. Therefore, there is a lane called the Smart Check lane at St Pancras, where passengers can just show their face and walk through to clear ticket checks and exit checks, instead of having to fumble with bits of paper. So in all these cases, what we're seeing is asserting the centrality of the couch. But you have to remember that whereas at the station, in the bank, in the government office, a physical human being is looking at another physical human being, so they can see that they're real and right there and right now. On the couch, nobody knows you're not a dog with a paper mask over your face. Yes. And therefore the task of ensuring genuineness becomes actually the principal requirement to do an identity verification remotely. And that's at the heart of the future of remote identity verification lies this task of assuring genuine presence. So we find ourselves probably at the pivot of the digital future of fintech.
Well, Andrew, I mean, you've just put everybody else's 12 months to shame. I mean, you've done so much in such a short amount of time, and you've also achieved so much as well. So really well done for that. I think, if anything, you've highlighted how this form of technology, of authentication, is very applicable to other areas of industries that aren't necessarily directly related to fintech.
We think that the next step is for identity verification, is for verification and authentication using only your face, or using largely your face, will expand beyond onboarding and account creation, which is where it is now slowly becoming ubiquitous, to the whole task of repeat authentication. We're already in use by banks like KNAB in the Netherlands and others in South Africa, as a factor or a second factor. The Singapore government uses us, for example, as a principal authenticating factor for the National Digital Identity SingPass. the ease of use, the intuitiveness, the accessibility, the ubiquity, the fact that it'll work on any personal device, any mobile or any laptop, makes it an incredibly compelling proposition as a second factor in any strong customer authentication solution, such as being used, or such as is required by PSD2, such as now is becoming more and more important for the protection of the cyber integrity of enterprises who are seeking, obviously, to roll out multi-factor authentication to protect themselves against the growing environment of threats that I think we all know about. So we're very excited over the next 12 months about the application of genuine presence assurance and biometric face verification to the whole authentication world, and beyond that into the area of verifiable credentials, which is an area where we're working with the National Science Foundation in the United States to pioneer new solutions.
Well, that sounds very interesting, Andrew, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the summit, and yes, thank you for everything.
Thank you very much, Tyler. Thank you very much.
Thank you.